Hello, everyone. Welcome back into the Wolverine.com podcast. It is Monday, November 4th. Hard to believe we are into the month of November already. Recording a little bit earlier today. Event schedule was a little wonky for us with Monday press conference and basketball and all this other stuff going on. So we are recording a little bit earlier. Not going to have a Monday press conference to recap. So we'll get into some other things here. Of course, Anthony Burma here with Chris Ballas and Clayton Safey coming off of a weekend where Michigan did not put up an upset bid against number one Oregon. It was 38-17. We'll kind of put a bow on that weekend and look forward to this Indiana game and maybe a little further down the road with some things coming up here. Also want to talk about Michigan basketball season, which gets going tonight at home against Cleveland State. The Dusty May era finally begins. We'll get some superlatives and talk about this team here a little bit later. And as we do every week, we will take your questions at the end of the show. But fellas, welcome back in on a rainy, kind of dreary Monday here in the state of Michigan.
Kind of sets the mood for the Michigan football season so far, if we're being honest. So heading into a game with Indiana that, man, you watch Indiana, and I went back and watched that Indiana-Michigan State game to see just what Indiana is. That's a good football team, guys. And we'll have more on that. And I picked up some things from some pro scouts at Michigan about this Indiana team, and we'll have that inside the fort on Friday. But man, Kurt Signetti, man, Google him. He wins. He actually does, and he might come across as a douchebag, but he's a winning douchebag.
It's basketball season. We're all the way back. I'm pumped up. So this is awesome. I haven't even looked outside, so I didn't even know it was raining. So you are officially my weatherman over here in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I'd like to start the day with a little walk and talk to get the brain cells working here. And someone argued that it never really does take place for me during the day, but that's neither here nor there. We are, of course, brought to you each week by our friends over at Home Field Apparel. At this point, now that we're into November, I mean, if you're not thinking about your Christmas shopping now, some people are go somewhere and get a gift card on Christmas Eve or put cash in a card. Don't be that guy. Go to homefieldapparel.com. You're going to outfit your whole family this holiday season. You're going to get T-shirts for them. You're going to get the national championship gear. You're going to get some of the joggers, the crew neck sweatshirts, the hoodies. It's all there. Home Field Apparel's collection of Michigan stuff, and it's not just limited to Michigan. I mean, the designs they have for most of the other schools on there are incredible. And I say most because they do have a Michigan State and Ohio State collection on there as well. No disrespect to any of your family members that might be partaking in that, but use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. You've got the platinum football box, the regular football box. Clayton Safey has been rocking the bomber jacket, one of my favorite things that they have up on the website. So use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order today over at homefieldapparel.com. And as always, we'd like to thank them for their friendship and sponsorship of the Wolverine podcast. All right, guys, I sort of wrote about this the other day and did the post-game show too. So I'm not going to park too much on where I'm at with it. But, to me, you look at that game Saturday against Oregon, you lose 38-17. And in some ways, maybe it shouldn't have been that close. And others, you feel like Michigan sort of blew a chance to make it a little more competitive, had a couple chances to make it, when it was a 2-score game, to make it a 1-score game. And then who knows, you see what happens from there. But, when you kind of remove the emotion of, the 60 minutes of what the football game was, I think you go back, you rewatch the game, and a lot of things to me that I see is a reinforcement of things that need to change. I don't know that can change this year, that can only change with the benefit of having a full off season to evaluate. And certainly whether it comes down to the coaching staff, when it comes down to the transfer portal, when you play these measuring stick type of games, you kind of learn how far away you are. And the Texas game, I don't want to say you write it off. That was painful. There were a lot of red flags and concerns that come out of that. But, week 2, you're kind of drinking out of the fire hose. You know how much you had to replace. Saturday to me was just kind of more of a reminder of not only how far the program has kind of fallen in these last 10 months, but how much work they need to do to kind of get back to that level.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to. What I wrote was you don't have to have patience anymore, right? In the era of portal and NIL, and you just point to what the next opponent did, Indiana, and bringing in a coach with some players and went from worst to first or close to it. And maybe they will. Maybe they'll upset at Ohio State. And I think it's almost a foregone conclusion they're going to beat Michigan. I know Clay will disagree with me, but I don't see any way Michigan goes down there and gets a victory. But what I will say is that you can fix it quickly now, and there's no reason that a place like Indiana should be able to, and Michigan should not. You have to do it right though, and you have to have a plan, and that's something that they've been lacking in, and we've been saying it forever. But if they want Sharon Moore to succeed here, then they really need to go all in on portal, and we're starting to see they're starting to go all in, guys, with the recruiting and the NIL. So, which is good as long as you do it right, as long as you don't do it like some of those teams that have imploded by buying talent and then locker room issues and everything else, which was one of the excuses, right? Like, well, we don't want to be that team. We want to be transformational, not transactional, so on and so forth. And what that gets you is this football team that you have here, which is kind of schizophrenic and just not talented enough, not well enough coached at this point. So, but to me, um, it it's been tough to watch, especially after the last 3 years when you see good, sound, fundamental football, and now you see guys missing tackles, and you see guys, an offensive line that should be better than it is, not playing very well, and you're 5-4, headed towards 5-5, and need to beat Northwestern probably to go 6-6. So, but we knew there was going to be a step back, guys. We just didn't expect it to be this big of a step back, and to me, that's the biggest disappointment. They're just not playing good, sound, fundamental football.
My number one takeaway from the game is that Oregon is really, really good, and number one in the country for a reason. But Michigan also could have hung in there, quite a bit closer. They missed a lot of opportunities in this game, despite Oregon being that good, despite Oregon coming out firing on all cylinders offensively in the first half. They shouldn't have had the touchdown. It should have been at least 4-point difference there on the first one to Evan Stewart. He clearly dropped it. Big Ten. We'll see if Sharon Moore talks today about any response he's gotten for the Big Ten on that, because that's brutal. That's terrible. It can't happen in a football game when this is why you have review, right? And then they hold up the one. Was it the Whittington touchdown for like 2 minutes? It's like, oh, they're reviewing a touchdown. Wow, novel concept. But when you start on the Oregon 47 and you only get 5 yards, you don't even get into field goal range in the first half, it's disappointing. When you take the ball out of Davis Warren's hands on the really last drive of consequence for Michigan, when he's been good in the red zone, throwing 2 touchdown passes into the end zone, that's pretty brutal. And a couple other missed opportunities. If Tyler Morris comes on with a ball he could have gotten, or Makari Page picks off a pass, one of many that he nearly intercepts throughout his career, then it's a different game. So it was going to take a lot to beat Oregon. Michigan didn't get those things that it needed, but it was close, and it showed some progress, especially at quarterback with Davis Warren, some wide receivers making plays, the defense settling in despite not having their corners. But you can't start that slow and expect to come back and win if things aren't going to go perfect. And that's not even to mention, some the penalty on the punt and, some of the other coaching blunders.
Yeah, and part of it too is that we know to a certain extent, the deck is, I don't want to say stacked against them, but we know there are some deficiencies on the roster and some things that they just haven't been able to replace from last year. But you look at the group, and it's hard not to feel like, the sum shouldn't add up to more than what it's been. Again, you have the ball, down 31-17, you march down the field, and your last 3 play calls of that drive, the ball is not in Davis Warren's hands at all. And that's a coaching error. So for as much as we talk about, if a guy drops a pass here or a guy catches a pass here, a guy doesn't drop an interception there. I mean, I still come out of that game feeling like, the coaching staff kind of let them down a bit and has let them down a bit at times. And they're not going to lament losses to Texas and Oregon. Like to be frank with you, I mean, they really had no business being on the field with either of those teams, just in terms of like how they match up with them. But you're going to lament some of the mistakes that you made in games like Illinois and games at Washington. And, now when you sit here and, we sit here early in the year, we talk about, okay, what would be like the minimum thing that we could probably accept or that could probably be something you feel okay about coming out of the season. We talked 8-4, you talk maybe 7-5, worst set of circumstances. This thing's kind of barreling towards 6-6 right now. And I said it Saturday night. I know Northwestern's not very good, but when you play this, the type of football that Michigan has played at times, I don't think you can just sit here and say, oh, well, it looks like it's going to be 6-6. I still think the range of outcomes is on the table to not make a bowl game. I think that's very much still in play. So I guess from here, I mean, you go to Indiana this weekend, you're going to get a second bye week. At this point in the year, I don't know if that's beneficial or not. And then you play Northwestern, you end the year at Ohio State. So like, what do you look for the rest of the year? Because to me, it's almost like you're kind of just waiting for the season to end to know how a lot of these deficiencies, a lot of these things that need to change, how is that going to get addressed? Because that's sort of where I find myself today.
Yeah, me too. And you wait, and this is another thing I wrote is that you wait all year, right? They're only, if you're lucky, right, you get 75 Michigan football seasons in your lifetime, and it's 55 or 60 that you really get and appreciate and are able to understand. And it sucks when you have this and you're watching it and you're like, this isn't working and this team isn't going anywhere, they're not improving, and what's next, and is it going to be better? And again, the saving grace is that you've got NAL and you've got the portal now where you can fix it. Am I confident that they're going to be able to do this in a year? Not really, just because they've shown they're kind of slow to the draw when it comes to the portal and when it comes to NIL. So they're kind of playing from behind, which is what we've been saying for 3 years. So, and that's really largely due to the administration. So hopefully he gets everything he needs. I hear all the talk about Bryce Underwood. This isn't about one player in one recruiting class. Yeah, that stuff helps, but they still need to be really well coached too. And that's my concern, is that I see some of these issues up front on offense, on the offensive line, and talking to Doug Skeen, Michigan's former All Big Ten offensive lineman, where guys are making the same mistakes over and over again. And these are basics. He said these are things that you learn in camp. And you look at the missed tackles and you look at the third down percentage against guys. What are they, 109th in the country in third down defense? That's insane. This should be better than it is. And, I understand that they're missing Will Johnson, but you can be better than that. And they should be better than that. Like Anthony said, as the sum of its parts, it's just not living up to it. There's enough talent there to be better than they are. And that's what bothers me the most. So if I would feel really good if this were a really good, sound, fundamental football team that just didn't have the talent and they were getting beat because of that. But I think it's other things. And that's what really kind of makes me nervous.
Yeah, it's the just the feeling that you have a lot of talent out there and you're not getting what you should be getting out of it, and it's not to those guys. It's not their fault, right? I mean, you're seeing Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant play 55 snaps in games. They're third and fourth in the Big Ten in defensive snaps among defensive tackles, and they're giving it their all every single time. And I think Mason Graham kind of plays at the same level pretty much all the time. Obviously, he'd benefit from being a little bit fresher. I think Kenneth Grant really benefited last year from being able to be in that 20 to 25 window and just kind of wreak havoc when he came in. But you have guys giving it their all for the most part. They still need to be better. I agree with you. The offensive line up front, I mean, maybe it's max effort, right? But you got to play smarter. You got to play with better fundamentals. You got to have better mental focus, physical focus, whatever you want to call it, because Giovanni El-Hadi, I thought, had a bad game against Oregon. It started on the first play from scrimmage. He gets, he doesn't even, I don't even want to say he got beat because he didn't even get a shoulder pad on his guy, and it gets blown up for a loss of yards. Michigan went backwards on their first 3 first down plays. Michigan averaged less than 3 yards per play on first down. They averaged 1.8 yards per rush on first down, I believe it was. So, and a lot of that was, I thought, some weird plays called on first down. The first 3 first downs were a pitch out to Donovan Edwards, an end around or kind of a reverse to Colston Loveland, and then a Samaj Morgan end around. Instead of just trying to, of course, if it doesn't work, you can question it, but they didn't get north and south. They didn't get positive yardage on first down. and they averaged over 8 yards to go on third down. And that's partly why you go 4 of 12 on third down. It's not just those plays. It's what led to that. What situations were you in specifically? And I do give Davis Warren credit. 2 of his touchdowns were on third down. He had a couple other really nice conversions, one to Colston Loveland, one to Tyler Morris on third down. But, you got to maximize all the opportunities you have when you're at a deficiency in talent, especially offensively and at the quarterback position. You're seeing some progress. Davis Warren's gotten better. Some other guys have gotten better. Wide receivers finally stepped up. Loveland is incredible. Donovan Edwards is playing a little bit better than he has at times, but you're just not seeing the coordination there be in the organization be as good as it could, which is disappointing. So you go into these games and you realize that Indiana can put 40, 50 on anybody. Ohio State can do the same thing. Oregon could certainly do the same thing. You're going to have to score some points to beat these teams and stay in the game with these teams instead of just, hey, we had a chance to make it a 1-score game or we had a chance to do this. You got to actually put up some points here. And the defense has to start faster and not allow so much early on in the games. Otherwise, you're not going to have much of a shot, and especially in these road environments, they have 2 out of 3 coming up.
Well, the other thing too is, to piggyback off the road environments. I mean, we just saw them play a very good, an elite football team at home, and not be able to take advantage of. There was some field position. I keep going back to, again, down. What was it? Down 1 score. You get a stop on defense. You get the ball at midfield. You go 3 and out. Like those type of moments. They haven't been able to meet those moments this year, and you're going to go on the road next week to a team where Kurt Signetti, will not hesitate to hang 50 on them if he can. In a lot of ways, kind of fulfilling maybe the prophecy that Ryan Day said when he was going to run up the score on Michigan a few years ago. I mean, Kurt Signetti is a killer, and they will not let the foot off the gas. And some people said that Dan Lanning ran up the score on Saturday. I don't feel that way at all. Still a 2-score game. You're trying to run out the clock. You're trying to make sure that you secure a victory. I never felt like, Oregon rubbed salt in the wound or anything like that. But
I think he ran it up, but I don't have an issue with that. Stop it if you have a problem with it. So
no,
I'm
not
going to criticize that.
No, that's the flip side of some of the way that Michigan's played the last few years against some of these teams. When you have a chance to just kind of twist the knife, you do it. And I think that's the worry for me is that, when you have an opportunity to play in some of these games where you are the underdog and you are trying to spring an upset, I don't know that they're disciplined enough on the field, and I don't know that the guys on the sideline put them in good enough positions to ensure they get the job done. So that's, and people say, oh, well, if you just find a way to beat Ohio State, you can salvage this season. I don't think they have the recipe. Like, if you're baking it, you're trying to bake this cake, the recipe is to beat Ohio State. They haven't displayed any of the things this year to me that show that they're capable of doing that. And to me, that's just what kind of lends itself to sort of coasting the rest of the season out and seeing how Sharon Moore fixes this. Because I do think that he should be allowed the opportunity to fix this, barring something crazy happening.
That's the only thing that makes this season even somewhat anything but a shit sandwich is if you beat Ohio State, right? And I mean, it could have been worse, right? You could have lost to Michigan State. That is the only thing. But this is not Michigan State. This is Michigan, and it's not about beating Michigan State. You're supposed to beat Michigan State, right? It's a sense of relief in that you aren't walking around the state and saying, "God, you guys really suck, and we beat you, and we weren't supposed to beat you. We beat you," and so on and so forth. If you're a Michigan fan having to deal with Michigan State fans, but this is Michigan, and that's not really the expectation here. So now, if you beat Ohio State, if say you finish 7-5, you get something, you show some improvement. But we know that's probably not going to happen. I think it's a long shot. This is not the mid '90s when there was still a ton of talent on those teams and they could pull one out. This Ohio State team is probably going to step on the throat the way Indiana's probably going to step on us. So this team is not built to go on the road and win. They don't have the psyche. They don't have the confidence. And they don't have the leadership. I hate to say it, but I've seen that as well. So it's going to be tough. We're just going to play it out. And then, whether it's the, Light My Fart Bowl or whatever, wherever they're going to go. What is it? I mean, probably Music City Bowl or the
The
Quit
Duke's
playing.
Mayo Bowl is in play. A Sharon Moore Mayo Bath is in play this year.
Where's the Mayo Bowl held?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right. Well, that wouldn't be terrible. So, but uh, yeah, I mean, it's a far cry from where we were the last 3 years, and it needs to be changed. It needs to be changed quick.
As much as this is Michigan and beating Michigan State doesn't really do much to what the season is, this is Michigan and beating Ohio State would. And they do have some opportunities here. I mean, the Indiana game, they're double digit or 2-score underdogs. I think it opened at 14. It's the biggest spread Michigan's had against Indiana, I think, ever. They've won 42 out of 44 against this team, and they're 2-score underdogs. You don't see that happen. It's a credit to what Indiana's done this year, and obviously some of the issues we've talked about with Michigan. But I think Derek Moore talked about it after the game. I believe it was him that said, we're still going to keep fighting, and how we're going to be remembered is how we finish out this season. And in a way, he's right and wrong, right? They're going to be remembered as the team that followed up the national championship. It wasn't very good. It just, they lost some games they shouldn't have. But if they do finish strong somehow, right? I'm not predicting it or saying it's likely. And of course, wasn't likely in some of these other upsets throughout the years of Ohio State, or keeping it close in 2013. He could have won on a 2-point conversion, things like that. But he's right in that sense that you will always be remembered, though, as a team that, either knocked Ohio State out of the playoff. We'll see what the Buckeyes do against Indiana. They could still get in with 2 losses, or just kind of, maybe got Ryan Day out of there. Let's say Ohio State loses that game, makes the playoff, loses in the first round. He may be gone. So there's still a lot on the line in that game, especially, including on the Ohio State side, a lot of pressure for Ryan Day and those guys. And you have the chance to go on the road, get your first road win of the season, even though it is late in the year, against Indiana this weekend. That would certainly be something that they'd come home and be very excited about. So there's still more to play with. I do disagree, Anthony, on the bye week not meaning anything. This is a banged up team as well, especially in the secondary. I think getting those guys back for Northwestern, Ohio State, in my opinion, would be big, because Northwestern, you can kind of figure some things out. You got to win; it's no guarantee. But then you got Ohio State the next week, and you take your best and healthiest team to Columbus and see if you can sing the victors again by the end of the afternoon.
Yeah, the bye week kind of becomes, okay, reset now. All of your resources are obviously on, you got to prepare for Northwestern, but it's fully becomes.
You better beat them.
Well, yeah, you better. I'm just saying. It fully becomes like, okay, how do you position yourself to beat Ohio State from there? There are always bits and pieces of the things they do to prepare for that. But anyways, we're going to turn the page on that kind of a dark sort of chapter of Michigan football to turning the page on a new era and a brighter era of Michigan basketball. They start their season tonight at 8 p.m. Against Cleveland State. First official game of the Dusty May era. And again, Clayton does a fantastic job with the individual game previews. So head on over to the site and check that out. I want to go a little more wide-ranging or with how we discuss this team here in this portion of the show. I mean, where are we at with the expectations? I know we haven't really changed. The exhibitions haven't really changed what we felt about this team. I think more so kind of reinforces their confidence that they're going to be a team that not only competes for, positioning in the Big Ten. I do think they'll be a top half of the Big Ten team. I do think they have a chance to make a little bit, relatively speaking, a little bit of noise in the NCAA tournament. It kind of gets crazy once you get out of that opening weekend, but confidence and conviction about what Dusty May is going to be able to do with this program. How are we feeling as the season is just hours away now?
I agree with you. I think this is a tournament team. I think this is a very good offensive team. I think that they will be top half of the Big Ten. I worry a little bit defensively, guys. And some of the people that I've talked to say, I'm on the fence about what they do defensively and how they do it. But the one thing I'm confident of is if it's not working or if it's something that doesn't work, Dusty May is not going to hesitate to change things up and find a solution. So we'll see how it goes early on. They gave up far too many points against Toledo. Obviously, Toledo made some great shots in that exhibition too. So I'm not going to sit there and say, oh my God, we have to panic here because they gave up 92 points against Toledo. But I'm very interested to see how they play together defensively in the first several weeks, the first couple months of the season. So, but they can score it. I love the way they shoot the ball. I love the way they share the ball. I love the way that they are together as a team. There are no egos, and I think that's a far cry from the last couple of years when we saw Michigan basketball tank to 8 wins, which is unbelievable, unfathomable, really. So I'm glad to have that excitement back. And again, it's not football, but it shows you how quickly you can turn something around if you do something right in college sports these days with the portal, with NIL. And LJ Cason's going to be an absolute star at some point. He's going to have a huge role on this team. Love that kid. It's funny when he smiled at you with those braces, you're thinking, this is just a kid here, man. It's just like this guy has got what a career this kid's got in front of him. So fun to watch. Vlad Golden, the assassin there, man. Boy, it's kind of scary when he looks at you like that after a dunk. But this guy's going to be better than he's been in the exhibition season too. I think you're going to see a little bit more focus. So, but I like these guys. I like this team. I like this group. I like the coaches. It's going to be a fun team to watch. I can't wait till tonight. I just wish it started at 6 so I could be back in bed by 11.
On March 13th, Michigan lost to Penn State in the Big Ten tournament. There was no excitement, no future for the program. A couple days later, Juwan Howard's fired. You still don't know, right? Who are they going to get? Who wants to come here? Is there going to be NIL support? 10 days after that, Dusty May is hired. Okay, more excitement. His press conference a few days later. All right, he's legit. He's the real deal. All his interviews he was doing. Okay, starts to hire a staff. Got a couple guys. Looks like Vlad Golden's going to come from Florida Atlantic. Follow him with him. Oh, he might bring this LJ Casing guy, this signee. He might have been overlooked there in Florida. He got a couple offers late. And it just grew. The excitement just grew and grew and grew throughout the offseason. You add Roddy Gale, you add all these different pieces. Reuben Jones, a role player type. He's going to be in the starting lineup, but certainly fits that defensive stopper role and a guy that makes invisible plays, as Dusty May talked about last week. He moves the ball and puts it in the right positions and then plays sound defense. All these different guys we could name, right? And now here we are, the day of the game, and everyone's pumped up about the season. It's just amazing what several months have done for this Michigan basketball program. He's going around to fraternities, saying, hey, we need your support. We're trying to get to the Final Four here. And he's not shying away from winning big at Michigan right away. So a lot of excitement. You guys know where Joe Lunardi has Michigan right now. Of course, bracketology season is here. He's got him as an 8 seed. So that would be it's hilarious that they do these so early. But yeah, people are feeling that Michigan is kind of right where we think, right? I mean, 8 seed, I think they'll probably be higher than that, but in a good way. Higher is in terms of lower number seed, but higher on the bracketology chart there. But we'll see. It's a long season. They're going to have to come together. They're going to have to win tonight to keep that excitement going in the short term here. But like you said, CB, it's like you just have this feeling that whatever happens, they're going to be able to kind of figure it out. Maybe it's naive, but I don't think so. I think this staff's really good. I think they have a lot of good players who are veterans as well. And it just feels like they have a lot of the pieces that might take some time to come together, but will come together at some point. And, you hope that's when the season, really starts to ramp up in the Big Ten play there in January, February, early March, that they are really hitting their stride.
I think for me and Clayton, I mean, you more or less kind of hit on it. I think that the most impressive thing is that every step of the way, as if, hiring a guy who took Florida Atlantic of all places to a Final Four wasn't impressive enough. I mean, I just think that every step of the way in which Dusty May has built the roster, built the coaching staff, built kind of this infrastructure where, it's almost like you have like this basketball sort of AI leading your program where they're going to take all this feedback. They're going to take all this data and learn and apply it and, just sort of, improve in-house. And you look at, I don't want to look too far ahead to what, Dusty May could be in the Big Ten, but I don't know if I could name more than 1 or 2 coaches in this conference that I'd rather have than him right now. I think the way in which he prepares his team, the way in which he built the roster, he feels like a guy that with the resources that, a University of Michigan can provide, he's about, his stock is about to shoot through the roof. And who knows what that means this year. Again, there are still so many pieces, and I know he's even said they're a little bit concerned about physicality and they don't know how good they can be defensively. But I think this is a team and a head coach that's going to give you a chance to win every single night out. And that's not me saying they're going to go 30-0 in the regular season or 31-0, whatever it winds up being. But Ken Palm's got them projected at 18-12, 500 in the Big Ten. 500 in the Big Ten, is pretty safely going to get you in the NCAA tournament, I think. But I look at that 18-12, and I'd probably, if we're just setting a prop bet, are they over or under that? I think this is probably a team that finds a way to win 20 games, 21 games. I just think they're going to be that well coached. I think the way they shoot the ball, they're going to get themselves into a lot of shootouts, and I think they have the firepower to win those types of games. And I wouldn't be surprised if they stole a few in non-conference that maybe, they're not expected to win. So just super excited to see how it comes together now that they've had a couple weeks to really kind of hone in on details, tinker with their lineups. We think we know what they are based on those exhibition games. But man, oh man, I could not be more impressed and I could not be more excited. I mean, if a year ago, who did they open the season with a year ago? I have to go back and look here. UNC Asheville. Yeah, okay. Michigan starts 3-0. They get that win over St. John's, and then the rest of the way they win, I think, 5 games. I just feel like it's not last year was historically bad, but if they won 8 games last year, I wouldn't be surprised if they had 8 wins before you open your Christmas presents this year. I just think that they're gonna hit the ground running, and we're gonna forget pretty quickly about what the last few seasons have been.
No, I agree with that. And I just the feeling, right? You could feel it in Chrysler too. When even at the exhibition games, I thought there was a nice turnout there for that Toledo game, and you could sense it with the Mays Rage. Dusty May has asked the students for help, and he got it, and I think he's going to get it. So, what sucks is all these 9 o'clock games, guys. I hate to say this, but it's gonna hurt the crowds at some of these games, and there are quite a few of them. I was going down the schedule. I'm thinking, why are they playing 8 o'clock on a Monday night against Cleveland State? That I've already had a ton of people trying to hit me up trying to get rid of their tickets because they just can't. It isn't feasible to come from 2-3 hours away and then go home, and then kids have school in the morning and stuff like that. So I don't mean to be that get off my lawn guy, but I am, and I don't think that's it's TV and I understand it, but I think they win. They're going to get the support they need, and to me, I think this is just an unbelievable rebirth, and they are so great. I'm so grateful that Dusty May wanted this job. It's funny because when we first interviewed him, he said the second that the job opened up, he knew that he was going to be very interested in it. It came down to Louisville, Michigan. There's Megan going through the schedule, and I don't see any 9 o'clock games. There's Tarleton State at 8:30. There are some 9
That's a
o'clocks.
big one.
Yeah, exactly. But there are some home games that are quite a few home games that are 9 p.m. I think in the conference. So regardless, I can't wait to see this team. I'm excited. I'll be there tonight and looking forward to covering it and seeing how good they can be.
This is sneaky a big first week and a half for Michigan. And by the way, the reason why I think the college basketball season doesn't start on its normal Tuesday is because there are some big events happening in the country tomorrow night. But yeah, regardless, Monday night, kind of a weird one. I think it's their only Monday game or one of 2 all season. But I think it should be a decent crowd. But you have Wake Forest in Greensboro on Sunday, and then next weekend or Friday night against TCU at home. Kind of toss-up type of games. You got to get one out of those 2. I mean, I say gotta, but what happens if you don't, right? You still have a lot of season ahead of you and you're fine. But I think it'd be a good sign if they're able to do, get one of those at least and kind of start off on the right track here and have a little bit of time to ease in before they go to Fort Myers on Thanksgiving week. But it's exciting to, have this to talk about for sure. And, just the product and how the season evolves and how they improve and, this needs work, but then you see them improving in this area. I mean, it's all so fun over the course of a 30-plus game season, especially when they're competitive and they have been for a long time, minus the last couple of years. So it feels like they're going to get back to that, which is, I think, a really, really positive thing for a lot of Michigan fans that are going to be there tonight and watching and having a lot of fun with this team.
I think the most important thing too, not the most important thing, but for fans, let's call it what it is. To a certain extent, there's a portion of the Michigan fan base that doesn't really lock into college basketball until college football season's over or until after Big Ten play starts. I know they're going to play a brand of basketball that is fun to watch. So I would encourage you, if you're looking for a pick me up, if you're looking for a palate cleanser from what you've been watching on Saturdays, I think jumping on the train as soon as this game tonight or as soon as you possibly can. I think that's it's going to give you something to be excited about as a Michigan fan.
Can I say something, Anthony?
Absolutely.
No bags allowed at Chrysler this year. Okay, that's a new policy. All right, we got to get that in. I know we said it last week as well, but if you're coming, no purses, no nothing. They got a new policy. We were told
every time Clayton says that, Tom Wyrock gives him $5. So we're
no bags. No bags.
No bags at all. Yeah, that's another $5. That's 15
right.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. So Michigan against Cleveland State, Chrysler Center. Hey, if you're not opposed to being out a little later on a Monday night, come on out. I think the last time I checked, I'm looking at the ESPN schedule. It says tickets as low as $2. I'm sure it's a little more than that with fees. Go over to another sponsorship plug. Our friends over at Game Time. You'll be able to get in. I think at a pretty good price point for this game. So come on out, be a part of it. It'd be cool to see the place full first Monday night of the season.
Especially if you use code ON3 for 15% off, and no bags if you come too.
No bags.
There we go. So look at that, an impromptu ad read. We can check now. We love our friends at Game Time. If you're not there, 8:00 Big Ten Network. So we will of course be out there. Excited to watch a team that doesn't make me want to take an ice pick to my eyeballs. All right, let's get into what's that?
They haven't won yet. They still got to beat them. Cleveland State.
That's all right. Well, things can change quickly.
Hope, as Lloyd Carr always used to say, hope springs eternal. So there you go.
It's like being reborn into basketball.
Exactly. True. And no bags.
No bags.
Yeah. All right.
All right, we're going to go questions from the board. We're taking them exclusively from the message board this week because we are recording in the morning. I want to start with this one from Barks for Blue, who says, what percentage would you give for seeing Will Johnson play again this season? Real quick, gut says maybe not this weekend, but maybe those final 2 games of the regular season with that bye week.
That's what I'm thinking. I think we'll see him in the last 2 games of the year, and then probably not in the Mayo or the Mustard Bowl.
Yeah, I usually think a guy warms up, maybe doesn't play, especially if they've been out a while. Then you see him the next week. He was in street clothes. He didn't warm up or dress in the last game, so it would seem like maybe a quick turnaround. But percentage, 80%, something like that. I don't know. Sharon Moore said he expected him back this season, and they do have the bye, so it's 3 games left. Seems slim. But it's 4 weeks, so it's still like a full month here, and they got some big games ahead.
Yep.
We will go to Bloomer, who wants to go back to basketball. He says, any predictions related to tonight's basketball game? He says he has Fat Brooks with 2 steals, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 5 points off the bench. This is difficult because they, like Dusty May said, they have a number of guys who could maybe lead the team in scoring on any given night. I haven't dove into the scouting report like Clayton has yet, but I'm going to plant a flag and say Roddy Gale Jr. scores 20 points tonight.
Wow. I think Vlad Golden's going to be better than he was in the first 2 games and have more of a scoring presence. That's what I'm going to predict. And I predict that there will be no bags.
Yep. You can try, but you're not going to get them in, guys. It's new policy.
Just leave them there.
I'll leave them in the car, but yeah, I like the Fat Brooks, and Bloomer is another Grand Rapids Catholic Central graduate as well. So he's rooting on our guy there, alum of the school. But I wouldn't hate to see that. I think that means Michigan wins pretty comfortably as well. They got 9 guys in the rotation. He's kind of the 10th that was getting some minutes there in the exhibition. I don't know that we're going to see him early on in the season. Is he a candidate for a red shirt? Dusty said in the summer he looked like it, but then he was trending more towards being someone that could contribute. So we'll see if they want to make that decision this early in the year. But in terms of a prediction tonight, I think this team's going to try to turn them over quite a bit. They got to take care of the basketball. I think could lead to some open shots on the perimeter. So maybe Walty hits at least 2 from probably the right corner, I would think.
It's bringing back the Walty nickname for a good cause now.
Right.
Love to see that.
Oh, the other guy's going to be out of the Big Ten next year, so he might as well.
True.
Well, hey,
Ryan Walters, head coach of Purdue.
Yes.
Could be a lot of defensive coordinator jobs open for him. We'll see what happens. Sasquatch 616 asks, what do you think would be better for Michigan football? Paying the money to flip Bryce Underwood or using that money to getting the top QB out of the portal for the next couple of years until Brady Hart is ready to start?
Great question. That's a tough one. If you can get a bunch of pieces right and a great quarterback for what it would cost for Bryce Underwood, who I really believe wants to be at LSU, that's my gut feeling, then I think that's the route you go. And I'm not saying I don't want Michigan to land Bryce Underwood, but I think if you can if you can use a ton of money to build a great team the way Indiana did. And again, a lot of those guys came from James Madison, and they have to be well coached. They got to coach them up. But I think that's the direction I would go, and show some improvement. Let Brady Hart know he's the guy that's going to be the next JJ McCarthy here. That's just my opinion.
Try to do what Indiana did, something we all thought we would be saying this season. But yeah, it is different, because he did bring guys with him. But yeah, I think they're going to have a lot of positions in need in the transfer portal, and that's going to require a lot of money. But I do feel like, from what we know of what their pursuit is of the quarterbacks for next season, is that, one, it doesn't have to be either or, and two, like, you may have the money lined up for one guy, but if you don't get him, it might not be that full amount for other people. So it's not necessarily like exactly what you have. I think there are a lot of moving pieces there. But I'm more of like a long-term option guy, and I think Bryce Underwood is incredible. I think he's capable of starting right away at a place like Michigan or LSU. I think that's possible if Nussmeier goes to the draft, like a lot of people expect him to. So I would lean more towards getting Underwood and then just raising the funds to get other guys too, and kind of take the both approach. But I guess that's just me, and it's probably easier said than done. But you're going to need a lot of money regardless, so you might as well get Underwood if you can, and get other guys that would help you out as well.
Yeah, right now I don't think there's a wrong way to go when it comes to that. I'll say this, first and foremost, I think it's important that whoever comes here wants to be here, and I think it's pretty clear that to me it still feels like a pipe. The Underwood thing, to me, I feel, I wouldn't call it a pipe dream. It's like a real pursuit, but I still think it's fairly unlikely to happen. That being said, like, would I rather have the bird in hand or wait 2 years for, Brady Hart to kind of be the guy? I think if Bryce Underwood wants to come and the price is right for him, and it's not just an NIL recruitment, which I'm not sure that it is, because if it was, maybe we'd be hearing a little more buzz about Michigan having a legitimate chance to flip him. But all the intel seems to suggest that it's more, the pursuit is ramped up. I don't know necessarily if the interest has. I think when you look at this team next year, though, you're right. I think it's the quarterback situation is kind of window dressing. I think they need a lot in a lot of other areas too. And all I would say is that if they do miss on Bryce Underwood, hopefully these donors bring that same energy when the transfer portal opens up, when, there are some other guys on the recruiting trail that, that need to be taken care of. And I push back on the insinuation sometimes that these guys that want to be paid are just in it for the money. I think there are a lot of good, we've seen it on the recruiting trail and in the portal the last few years. I think there are a lot of good kids for Michigan that are fits that just simply wouldn't come because other schools offered more. So if there's a silver lining in all of this, it seems like there are people with deep pockets that are taking this a lot more seriously than they had been. So if nothing else, that's a step in the right direction. Let's go to this one from Stephen Lindsay, who says, do we see Ben Hall or Jordan Marshall again this year?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm a little disappointed we haven't seen more of Ben Hall, to be honest with you, with all that we've heard about him. And next year maybe it'll be his turn along with Jordan Marshall. And Jordan Marshall, I think, was questionable, if I'm not mistaken, for this weekend. Wouldn't surprise me either if we saw him after the bye week as well. Give him 2 more weeks to heal up, and then most of these guys that are on the fence there should be good to go if they're not long-term injuries like Andrew Gentry. That's my gut feeling.
Marshall was warming up, and yeah, maybe next. I'd like to see him returning kicks this week. I think he is much better than Keyshawn Harris at doing that. He showed even a little bit there against Texas when he was healthy. So it's good he's gotten healthy. Tony Alford said earlier in the year that it wasn't going to be season ending. As you go towards the season and you see that he's out every week, you thought maybe, setbacks or whatever. But it's good that because this is valuable time for him practicing and things like that. So that's big for the future. And then Ben Hall, I mean, they've just haven't been in games where you can really afford to do it, although he has performed when they put him in. So I'd like to maybe see a couple carries from him as well down the stretch here, especially because Kalal Mullings, I don't know if he's working through something or what, but just not as effective as he has been or as he was early on in the season. So, and Ben Hall's got some shiftiness to him. So I think we'll see him at some point, and I think we'll see Marshall probably back on special teams.
Is Marshall better than Joe Taylor?
Joe Taylor, that was a hell of a return, man. Joey T. He had a good game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Forced a fumble as well. So tip of the hat to him. I'd like to see one or both of those guys. The Mullings thing is interesting, and that kind of goes into the next question I was going to take. Adam McD3 says, Mullings has slowed down his production. Do you think he's a bit banged up, or is it simply inadequate run blocking from the offensive line? And it's tough to say. Like, it doesn't seem like he's been dealing with an injury. At least they haven't said publicly, but this is a stat that I thought was interesting heading into last week's game. I don't know what the numbers look like from the Oregon game, but the first 5 or 6 weeks of the year, he had forced 25 missed tackles. And in the last 3 games or so coming into that Oregon game, I think it was 3 total. So something's changed. I don't know if defenses have made an adjustment. I don't know if he is working through something there, but I think the fact that I thought he'd have a better game on Saturday, and I think it was 8 carries for 16 yards or something like that. Just hasn't looked like himself the last few weeks.
And it could be that they're telegraphing the plays when he's in there too, right? And maybe some little nuances that they need to self-scout, because he's got nowhere to go. Let's be honest. They were just all over him against Michigan State and against Oregon as well. So, and we know that he can run. So hopefully we'll see a little bit better version of him on Saturday, and maybe they'll mix things up and not run horizontally and put themselves behind the sticks early on in games. But yeah, they need more out of him. He's really supposed to be the bell cow, although Donovan Edwards did play well last week.
It feels like it's a combination. It might be wear and tear of the season, where it's not a specific injury, but it's just kind of one of those things. He's getting less carries too. Of course, that happens when you're less effective as well. And Donovan Edwards has done some good things. Had a couple really nice runs this past game, and actually against Michigan State as well. But Anthony did not force a tackle again against Oregon. So we're looking at 4 missed tackles over the last 4 games, but none in the last 2. The teams are run blitzing a lot against them, where it's like there's just no room at all, and it's just clogged up. But even against some of those looks against USC and other teams, like, he would still get something. There'd still be a forward surge, and we haven't seen that. So my guess is he's a little slowed, but I don't know. And he, hasn't been anything talked about. So it's all speculation, but there's something just doesn't seem the same as it was early on in the season.
This next one here from SoCal for Mish, our good friend. It was good to see him in Seattle a few weeks back. He says, the notice of allegations reply is due in 3-ish weeks. It's been silent and leak free. He says, 1, does that mean there's no negotiations with the NCAA because we haven't heard any unethical leaks by them? 2, does that mean there are negotiations and the NCAA is obeying their own bylaws? 3, the NCAA hasn't been cooperative, and this is going to the Board of Infractions for a vote in another month. Every OSU and MSU's lives depend on the outcome of this, so it's really important. He wants us to pick one of those scenarios.
Honestly, I'm sure there are negotiations going on. Michigan lawyers wouldn't be doing their jobs if there weren't. And the fact that we aren't getting any leaks leads me to believe that there's going to be a resolution here that Michigan's okay with. And I don't think that includes a postseason ban, although I'd be okay with one this year if it made everything go away. Um, to be honest with you, I think you're going to see some heavy punishment for Jim Harbaugh. So that's, maybe even a lifetime ban, which is crazy to me. But it'd be interesting to see if he fought that or just gave the middle finger to the Big Ten or to the NCAA and said, "Screw you." But we'll see. I don't think it's bad, and we haven't really dug a whole lot into it to ask about it because we just, when it comes to you want to move on from this thing, right? And we don't want to keep it in the news any longer than it needs to be. But anybody thinking that they're going to vacate wins, that's never been on the table, or anything like that, is going to be disappointed, in my strong opinion.
Hey, SoCal, there's still 3 more weeks for Pete Thamel to get his hands on whatever Michigan's response is and leak it into, and include the worst possible insinuations or this could happen or whatever. So we'll see on that. I think it's probably just that Michigan's working on their response, haven't submitted it yet. Like you said, Chris, it's the middle of the football season. It's like it's not really the main thing. And it's other than, a lot of wishful thinking elsewhere. It doesn't seem like it's going to be all that bad anyway. And this is only Michigan's response portion anyway, so there'll be more after this. But I think that's probably the case. I don't know if that's 1, 2, or 3, but some maybe combination 1.5, 2.5.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just not to be a smartass. I feel like this entire season has been like a self-imposed punishment from the football gods, whatever the hell you want to call it. But hey, there are a lot of people online. There is a multiverse of people on X, the former app known as Twitter, that they're just waiting on bated breath. They can't wait to see what happens. They can't wait to see. So hopefully they find peace in their lives one way or another. But last one here we'll take from EJ Holland, of course, our recruiting insider, doing wonderful work. Very busy right now. Very busy EJ Holland is. He wants to know, is it now too early for Christmas lights?
Yes, I'm going to say yes, it is. You got to wait until at least mid-November. Generally, after Thanksgiving, to me, is when you do it. But I'd say at least mid-November before you do that. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, probably a couple of weeks too early. I can see doing it before Thanksgiving. Just because it's kind of the holiday spirit, I know. Yeah, it's a little extreme to do it now, though. People are, though. You've seen some out there, so I guess kudos to those people. But it's crazy. We move right on, and the grocery stores probably have Christmas stuff all over. I haven't been, but it was Halloween for like 2 months, and now it's going to be this. So we'll see.
Well, I was at the mall on Friday, and they're already setting up for Santa and all that sort of stuff. So it's I've always been like when I lived at my house, I had Black Friday was when I would put my stuff out. Day after Thanksgiving, kind of start getting yourself in the mood. On the other hand, my recently married to my wife as a November 1st person, so we're splitting the difference and calling it Veterans Day. So that's how we find peace through holiday setup here. So
which day's Veterans Day?
Yeah,
November 11th.
November. Okay, there you go. That's fair.
So
okay, that sounds great. Yep.
That's called compromise, fellas.
It is.
You got to do that every once in a while.
Recently married to his wife.
Remember this, and if you're going to see Santa, no bags, just like Monday and every other basketball game at Chrysler Center. No bags.
That's true. Yep.
All right.
You can bring them in the car. You just can't bring them in the game.
Just can't bring them in the game.
Can't.
No, leave your bags in the car. No bags.
All right. Well, I think that's a great place for us to put a pin in this and get on with what is a very busy Monday. We'll head to Sharon Moore's press conference from here. We will be at Chrysler Center for Michigan basketball at 8 p.m. Big Ten Network if you can't be there in person. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching via that platform for more great content, not only from us, what press conferences, we'll have stuff from EJ Holland. It's all there. So subscribe to our channel. Use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to thewolverine.com for a single $1. And for Chris Ballas, for Clayton Safety, for our producer Megan behind the scenes, thanks. We'll talk to you again soon. And remember, no bags.